Disabled veteran refuses to leave post until a squad of soldiers shows up and changes everything. Before we dive in, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us and is the only way we can share these powerful stories of bravery and resilience that often go unheard. Every subscription helps us reach more people and continue our mission. So please, subscribe now. The air was thick with tension as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the empty streets. A lone figure stood at attention, his uniform faded but still crisp, a testament to the battles he had fought. This was not just a soldier. This was a veteran who had given everything for his country and was now facing the world alone. His heart beat with a mix of pride and pain, knowing that while his body may have been broken, his spirit remained unyielding. In the distance, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed, a reminder of camaraderie that had long been absent. The quiet of the evening was pierced by the clattering of boots on pavement, each step a reminder of brotherhood forged in fire. Yet, the veteran remained steadfast, rooted in his post, refusing to leave the place that had held his dreams and nightmares alike. He looked out into the darkening sky, eyes glistening with unshed tears, longing for the echoes of laughter and the warmth of shared memories. What had once been a bustling camp now felt like a hollow shell, filled only with the whispers of ghosts from the past. As the shadows lengthened, the weight of solitude pressed down on him, a heavy cloak of despair. Yet, he stood tall, a guardian of his own memories, waiting for a sign, a presence that could rekindle the fire in his heart. Little did he know that change was on the horizon, and soon, everything would shift in ways he could never have imagined. As the night deepened, the cool breeze rustled the leaves, carrying with it the echoes of distant laughter and unfulfilled dreams. Mason Thorpe remained at his post, the flickering light from a nearby street lamp casting shadows across his weary face. His wheelchair, adorned with small mementos from his time in service, seemed to hold the weight of his memories. Each item, a patch, a photograph, a medal, told a story of bravery and loss, a tapestry woven from the threads of his past. Yet, the town had largely forgotten him. Shopkeepers would glance at him from their windows, some offering a nod of acknowledgement, but most simply turned away, preoccupied with their daily lives. It was a stark contrast to the camaraderie he once knew, a quiet reminder of how quickly people could move on. The local diner, once bustling with conversation, now served a different purpose, merely a backdrop to Mason's solitary vigil. As the clock struck 7, the owner of the diner, an aging woman named Edna, stepped outside, holding a steaming cup of coffee. "Mason, dear," she called out, her voice thick with concern. "You should come in and warm up. It's getting chilly out here." Mason shook his head, his gaze fixed on the memorial ahead. "I appreciate it, Edna, but I need to be here. They deserve this." Edna sighed, her heart aching for the man who had sacrificed so much. "You're doing them proud, but you can't forget about yourself. You need to take care of you too." A small group of children walked by, glancing at Mason with wide eyes. They whispered among themselves, their innocent curiosity palpable. "Why does he just sit there?" one asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What's he waiting for?" Her friend shrugged, uncertainty clouding his features. "Maybe he's waiting for his friends to come back." Mason caught snippets of their conversation, a bittersweet smile creeping onto his lips. They were right in their own way. He was waiting for a sign, a memory, a moment that would bridge the gap between his past and the present. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere shifted. A group of veterans from a nearby town had heard whispers of Mason's dedication and decided to pay him a visit. They arrived in a small convoy, their vehicles rumbling softly as they parked alongside the memorial. Stepping out, each soldier wore their pride like armor, their camaraderie evident even from a distance. "Is that Mason?" one of them asked, squinting through the darkness. "Yeah, it is," another replied, a sense of reverence in his tone. "He's been holding down the fort for months. We need to support him." They approached slowly, unsure of how he would react to their presence. Mason turned, sensing the change in the air, his heart racing at the sight of familiar faces, faces he once led into battle, faces that had once looked to him for guidance. "Mason," one of them called, breaking the silence. "We're here." Mason's expression softened, a mixture of disbelief and joy flooding through him. You came," he stammered, emotion welling in his chest. "Of course, we did," the soldier replied, stepping closer. "You taught us to stand together, no matter the odds." With that, the squad formed a line beside Mason, a powerful gesture of solidarity. The sight of them standing together brought tears to his eyes, the warmth of their presence igniting a flicker of hope in his heart. As they stood in silence, a passerby caught sight of the gathering and stopped, her breath catching in her throat. "Look," she whispered to her partner. "They're honoring him." Word spread like wildfire through the small town. People began to gather, drawn by the sight of soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder with the veteran who had refused to leave his post. Conversations erupted, and soon, the once quiet street was alive with whispers of admiration and respect. "Why are they here?" a young man asked, his curiosity piqued. "They're honoring Mason," an older woman replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "He's been here, alone, for so long." A few brave souls stepped forward, joining the line, creating a powerful symbol of unity that resonated deeply within the hearts of all who watched. Mason looked around, his heart swelling with gratitude and disbelief. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to comment from where you are hearing this amazing story. In that moment, the weight of his solitude began to lift, replaced by a growing sense of belonging. The town, once indifferent, was awakening to the significance of his sacrifice. People shared their stories, their gratitude, and their respect, weaving a narrative that transcended Mason's individual struggle. As the night deepened, more and more townsfolk joined the gathering, forming a circle around the memorial. The atmosphere shifted from one of loneliness to one of collective strength. The camaraderie that Mason had fought for, the brotherhood he had longed for, was finally enveloping him once again. And as the stars twinkled overhead, Mason realized that he was no longer just a guardian of memories. He was part of something greater, a movement that would honor not just his sacrifices, but the sacrifices of all veterans who had served. The night had changed everything, transforming a solitary vigil into an emblem of hope and resilience, a testament to the unbreakable bonds forged in the fires of war. As the night deepened and the townspeople gathered around Mason and the squad of veterans, a strange tension hung in the air. There was excitement, joy, and a palpable sense of unity, but beneath it all, an undercurrent of uncertainty began to stir. Just as the atmosphere seemed to reach its peak, a figure emerged from the shadows, a young woman, her face etched with conflict and determination. She stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Wait!" she called out, her voice slicing through the camaraderie. The crowd fell silent, turning to her with puzzled expressions. Mason's heart sank. He felt a wave of apprehension wash over him. "I have something to say," she continued, locking her gaze on Mason. "My name is Clara. I'm the daughter of one of the soldiers you lost." The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the weight of her words settled over them. Mason's breath caught in his throat, memories flooding back of the day he lost her father. A brave man who had fought valiantly by his side. The guilt of that day, the helplessness he felt, rose to the surface. "Clara, he began, but she held up her hand, silencing him. "Please, let me finish," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion swirling within her. "I've watched you from afar, and while I respect your dedication, I need you to understand something. My father's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was a consequence of decisions made by those who didn't understand the true cost of war." The crowd shifted uneasily, the mood darkening. Mason could feel the weight of their eyes upon him, questioning his choices, scrutinizing the very essence of his vigil. "What do you mean?" he asked, heart pounding. Clara took a deep breath, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You stand here, honoring those who fell. But what about the living? What about those of us left behind, trying to make sense of our loss. You wear your scars like badges, but you don't see the pain we carry every day." The words struck Mason like a physical blow. He had always believed that by honoring the fallen, he was also honoring the families left in the wake of their sacrifices. But Clara's accusation forced him to confront a hard truth. He had been so focused on his own grief that he had overlooked the suffering of others. I'm sorry," he stammered, the weight of her words sinking in. "I thought I was doing the right thing." "You may think you're honoring them, but you're also isolating yourself," Clara replied, her voice softer now. "You're not the only one who lost someone that day. We need to heal together, not in silence." The crowd murmured, the tension palpable as they processed her words. Mason could see the flicker of understanding in their eyes. But he also sensed a fracture beginning to form. "We need to talk about the real cost of war," Clara continued, her voice gaining strength. "It's not just the soldiers we lose, it's the families, the communities left behind. You've made this about you, but it's about all of us." Mason felt his heart sink further. He had never intended to make this vigil a solitary act. He had thought he was honoring his comrades, but now he realized he had inadvertently alienated those who had suffered alongside him. The unity he had felt moments ago began to unravel, replaced by a profound sense of isolation. "Clara, I never meant to," he started again, but she interrupted him. "I know you didn't. But it's time for all of us to confront our pain together. We need to share our stories, not just mourn our losses. Let's honor them by talking about how we can heal." The crowd shifted again, now caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Some nodded in agreement, while others exchanged glances of uncertainty. Mason felt a flicker of hope mixed with dread. Could he really open up about his pain, his struggles? Would the others be willing to do the same? "Perhaps we should—" One of the veterans finally spoke up, his voice steady. "We've been through so much together, but we've never really talked about it. Maybe it's time." The sentiment rippled through the crowd, a wave of agreement swelling as people began to share their stories. One by one, they stepped forward, recounting their experiences, their losses, their struggles with reintegration into civilian life. Mason listened, his heart heavy yet hopeful. As he heard the words of those who had walked similar paths, he realized that Clara was right. This vigil needed to evolve from a solitary act of remembrance into a collective healing process. The atmosphere shifted once more, the heaviness of grief lifting as connection began to form. Clara stepped back, a look of gratitude on her face as she witnessed the transformation taking place. And in that moment, Mason understood that honoring the fallen didn't just mean standing guard over their memorial. It meant bringing to light the stories of those left behind, creating a space where pain could be shared, understood, and ultimately healed. As the night wore on, the gathering became a tapestry of shared experiences, a powerful testament to resilience and unity. Mason felt a warmth spread through him, the weight of solitude lifting as he found strength in vulnerability. Together, they were not just honoring the fallen, they were forging a path toward healing, bridging the gap between past and present, and creating a community that recognized the true cost of sacrifice. The night had changed everything, transforming Mason's solitary vigil into a beacon of hope and collective strength. A new beginning that promised to honor not just those who had fallen, but all who had endured. As the stories flowed among the crowd, a palpable shift took place. The air, once heavy with silence, now crackled with voices sharing their truths, their pain, and their resilience. Mason watched, his heart swelling with a mix of pride and gratitude. Clara's words had sparked a fire, igniting a conversation that had long been neglected. "I never knew," he murmured to himself, feeling the weight of his own isolation. He had been so focused on his own grief that he had failed to see the shared burden of loss that surrounded him. One by one, the townspeople began to open up, revealing the heartache that lay beneath their everyday lives. A mother spoke of her son, a soldier who had returned home but never truly found his way back. A widow shared her memories of laughter and love, now replaced by an emptiness that echoed in her heart. Each story was a thread, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences, connecting them all in a profound way. "Let's honor them by sharing our struggles," Clara urged gently, her voice steady amidst the waves of emotion. "We need to understand that healing comes from unity, from acknowledging that we're all in this together." Mason felt tears prick at his eyes as he listened to the pain and courage laid bare. He had been standing vigil for his fallen comrades, but now he understood that honoring their memory meant embracing the living, those who fought their battles daily. As the night progressed, the atmosphere transformed from one of despair to one of hope. The soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder with the townsfolk, creating a circle of strength around the memorial. The flickering candlelight illuminated their faces, each one a testament to resilience, each story a reminder of the sacrifices made not just on the battlefield, but at home. "Mason," one of the veterans spoke up, his voice steady, "you showed us the importance of brotherhood, but you also need to understand that the fight doesn't end when the war does. We're all part of this journey." The crowd murmured in agreement, and Mason felt a surge of warmth wash over him. This was what he had been longing for, a connection, a shared understanding. "Let's create a space where we can come together," Clara suggested, her eyes shining with determination. "A support group for veterans and families, a place where we can share our stories and help each other heal." Mason nodded, the idea resonating deeply within him. "I'd like that. I'd like to help." And just like that, a plan began to form. The night shifted from a solitary vigil to a call for action, a movement that would bridge the gap between the living and the memory of those who had fallen. As they spoke, the crowd began to form committees, volunteers stepping forward to help organize meetings and create a safe space for sharing. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement and purpose, a collective determination to honor not just the fallen, but every life touched by the war. If this story is touching your heart, make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Mason felt a sense of belonging that had eluded him for so long. The isolation he had felt began to dissipate, replaced by a newfound purpose. He wasn't just guarding a memorial, he was becoming part of something greater, a community dedicated to healing, supporting one another through their shared experiences. The night wore on, and as the candles flickered in the gentle breeze, Mason realized that the memorial was no longer just a place of mourning. It had transformed into a beacon of hope, a symbol of resilience. As the first light of dawn began to break, the townspeople slowly started to disperse, but the energy of the night lingered. The conversations continued, connections were made, and promises were exchanged. Mason looked out at the memorial, a smile breaking through the remnants of his sorrow. He had set out to honor his fallen comrades, but in doing so, he had found a way to honor himself and those left behind. The impact of Clara's words had reverberated through the community, igniting a movement that would change lives. In the days that followed, the support group took shape, gathering veterans and families alike. They shared not just their grief but their triumphs, their struggles, and their journeys toward healing. Mason stood at the forefront, his heart full as he witnessed the power of connection. The little town that had once turned a blind eye to his vigil now embraced him, and the community that had formed around shared love and loss. The stories continued to flow, creating a rich tapestry of strength and resilience. Mason understood now that healing was not a solitary journey. It was a collective one, a beautiful mosaic crafted from the threads of shared experiences. Together, they transformed their pain into purpose, honoring the fallen by living fully and supporting one another. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the memorial, Mason knew that he had found his place, not just as a guardian of memory, but as a vital part of a community bound by courage, love, and the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood. The night had indeed changed everything, and in that change lay the promise of hope for all those who had served and those who loved them. The journey of healing had begun, and Mason was ready to walk it, side by side with those who understood the true cost of sacrifice.